Welcome, friends. Oh, it is good to be here. I'm grateful for another day. I hope you have your drink in hand. I see several of you have already stated that you do. Today is going to be a doozy. I'm grateful for all of you that are here. I'm grateful for those that are watching potentially later on. I want to kick this off with actually some exciting announcements initially. And so, probably my most exciting thing I want to share with all of you, you'll notice that as we go through the live stream today, there will be comments that will be showing on the actual screen. So that will be helpful for those of you that are watching later on that aren't involved in the live comments. All I ask is that you engage respectfully in the comments and that you enjoy the conversation. I hope that you would like, subscribe, and share. Send it to anyone and everyone that you might think would enjoy this. My exciting first announcement is I had the privilege of having a conversation with a former Adventist scholar this last week discussing whether or not he would like to come and join the show. And so I'm excited to announce that Dr. Jerry Gladson, who has a famous book, it's actually sitting on my back section right there. Actually, it's called The Theological Journey Out of Adventism. Dr. Jerry Gladson will be joining the YouTube channel September 18th. I will share the details more as things move forward, but September 18th, mark your calendars. That will be an incredibly exciting interview and conversation. And he will also be coming on several times after that. He has agreed to do that. So excited to announce that. The second thing, which is a very personal announcement that I'd like to share with everyone, is last week I was officially accepted into the DTS THM program, the mini PhD program, the Masters of Theology. It's a 120-hour course or class. It will probably take 4 to 6 years to complete. It is the stepping ground for me to move on to get my PhD. And so I'm excited to mention that. Obviously, that will mean that there's going to be a lot of stuff. I'm starting my first semester coming up here in a couple of weeks. So there will be a lot of additional things that will be going on. Meaning like for the next 12 months, I will be studying probably once a month to collect any courses that I actually can collect from all of the previous research and study that I've done. That will help lower the overall cost of the academic program. So just be praying for that. It will include also 24 hours of official language courses. It's a very rigorous, well-known program. And so just be praying for that, but also know that I will be doing that alongside of building out content and creating further research and kind of edifying the body through this channel. So keep that in mind. Some of you have actually asked, how can I support the ministry? And so I do want to just mention a couple of things initially. You obviously are welcome. I encourage all of you to please bookmark the Thinking Cup website. You will find obviously blog articles that you can click on in the upper menu. You'll see the knowledge base as well. That is a very unique platform because the knowledge base allows you to have kind of inside access to some of the research that I have already done. So you'll see some items in here that you can peruse through and look at. Many of these items are not documents I've officially published as a blog itself, but it is a place that you can kind of look into the mind of what Mike Colburn is doing. This will be a much more rigorous place as I begin to do my master's program because I will be utilizing that for research and further development. So please do make yourself familiar with that. Also at the top, you can see that you can join. I would encourage any and all to check out, subscribe, kind of hit that QR code if you haven't already. That's going to connect you to the Discord channel. And so I do want you to be aware there is a Discord channel that gives you access not just to myself, but it also gives you access to what I am kind of labeling a Bible nerd community. There's a lot of people, it's about 80 individuals currently, that really all we do is discuss Bible related things, theological items, systematic theology, just how does the Bible function? We've got obviously Bible studies going on, but then it's also just a community that we can provide prayer for if you need help and assistance. So it's a great group of individuals. Join with the Discord channel there. And then lastly, if you want to donate, there is a donate button in the upper right-hand corner. But I do want to encourage you, that leads me into the next segment, because with all of the master's program that is going on and the further development of the ministry, I have officially launched a Patreon account. And so if you head over to this link here, patreon.com, and you search for the Thinking Cup, this is going to be another platform really just to give you exclusive access. If you want to have a membership that's going to give you a little bit more access to some of the inside items that's happening in the ministry, anyone can join for free. That's totally fine. But if you want to actually support the ministry, click on the See Members section, and then you're going to see a list. I'm not going to read through here, a list of ways that you can support the ministry. Now, I want to point out that all of these options give you the same exact thing. Okay. It's not like you get more access. All you're doing is saying, hey, I want to commit and help kind of build the ministry financially. I do want to make sure that you're aware that there's several pages here. If you go all the way to the right, and I'm selfishly mentioning this, okay, my master's program is very expensive. It is very expensive. If you are capable and willing and you want to support in this way, again, I'm not coercing. I don't want you to do this at the exclusion of helping your family and making sure your family is taken care of. But if you do want to support me academically, we have this subscription on the right-hand side that you can do. Now, the one thing I want you to be aware of is that this actually will give you access to a private group inside of Discord, okay? It's a very private group inside of Discord that will be a little bit more of my private master's research. And as I move into doing papers and things of that nature, you'll get access to some of the behind the scenes items, as well as helping to build and determine some upcoming content. So please do look into that, pray over it. Again, I'm always here to help support this just by giving information to you all. But if you want to help support financially, I'd be honored for you to partner. That would be a huge help. I appreciate it tons. All right. With that being said, what do you think, friends? Should we get started? Should we dive in today? Let's jump into the conversation. Here we roll. All right, friends. Now, before we officially dive into this, it's going to be a deep dive, as we always do. I just want to remind those, and this is coming from a little bit of feedback. Maybe it was offered feedback. Maybe it was not so asked for feedback, but it was feedback nonetheless. That as you're looking at some of the slides that I'm going through, I do my best. I work diligently to make sure that the dates, the citations, the references, the information that we're going to look at is as accurate as it can possibly be. Now, I am here to to make an honest apology. I am human. I am human, friends. So if you do find something that happens to be just a tad bit off, well, that's okay. Share it with me. That's totally fine. I ask all of you to check my work. I have had Ellen Whiters dogmatically correct me and make, potential errors that I've had, citation errors, quotes, things of that nature. And they haven't done it really for the sense of trying to help build up the body. Instead, all they're doing is attempting to discredit me as a person. And so I'm just here to tell you very bluntly that I have spent hours and hours. Each one of these presentations, friends, they take at least 20 to 30 hours of work. It is meticulous work. And so I do this because I care. I do this because I want you to have good information. I do this out of a deep desire to break the chains of poor theology. And so, as always, please do check my work. Please, I ask you to do that. But do it in a way that honors and edifies the body. Okay, do it that way. Correct the work. Don't try to undermine the credibility of the researcher itself. All right, with that being said, let's dive straight in. We are going to kick off this particular episode with Mrs. White's kind of initial take on fashion, jewelry, kind of how did she teach these concepts among the followers, among those individuals that listen to her, especially among the women specifically. That's the big key. She was very passionate. She was extremely passionate about this particular topic. So, in fact, she straight up condemned wearing jewelry as a form of idolatry against God. I mean, check this out in our first segment here. Just check out what's going on, okay? She says this: The Lord God of heaven calls upon man to put away their idols, to cut off every extravagant desire, to indulge in nothing that is simply for display and parade, and to study economy in purchasing garments and furniture. Now, hold on a second. I want you to pay attention here, okay? Because she's calling this a form of idolatry. Okay, a form of idolatry. She goes on, continuing the quote, do not expend $1 of God's money in purchasing needless articles. Your money means the salvation of souls. Then let it not be spent for gems, for gold, or precious stones. So just catch what she's saying here for a second. Catch what's going on. She is clearly stating not a single dollar, friends, need to be spent on any of this. And she calls it specifically idolatry. Straight up worshiping false idols with your bling. Okay. Now, can you imagine? I want you to put yourself back in that time period. Can you imagine being told that you can't spend $1 on a necklace, on any type of ring, because in Ellen White's mind, it's basically stealing from soul-saving funds. Soul-saving, salvation of souls. Now, this is seriously intense stuff, okay? But it doesn't stop here. In one of her own testimonies, and remember, her testimonies were a unique testimony, a unique kind of testimony. She says this: self-denial in dress is a part of our Christian duty. To dress plainly, abstaining from display of jewelry and ornaments of every kind, is in keeping with our faith. Now, I'm going to pause here for just a second, because when she says our faith, what she's talking about is the Seventh-day Adventist flock movement, their faith, not Christianity's faith, not the rest of the world's faith, just Ellen White's, just her faith. the group that's following her. Are we of the number of those of who see the folly of worldlings in indulging in extravagance of dress as well as in love of amusements? If so, we should be of that class who shun everything that gives sanction to this spirit which takes possession of the minds and hearts of those who live for this world only and who have no thought or care of the next. Now, she explicitly, okay, she's even going to say that it pains her. It actually pained her to see young people wearing golden chains, calling it a clear sign of declension, as if their faith was slowly slipping away. Listen to what she says here. I am marked with pain. I have marked with pain your religious declension and your disposition to trim and ornament your apparel. Some have been so unfortunate as to come into possession of, oh no, gold chains or pins or both, heaven forbid, and have shown bad taste in exhibiting them, making them conspicuous to attract attention. I can but associate these characters with the vain peacock that displays his gorgeous feathers for admiration. It is all this poor bird has to attract attention, for his voice and form are anything but attractive. Interesting. So apparently, according to Ellen White, it isn't just a spiritual downfall to have ornaments on your clothes. Okay? It's downright bad taste to flash any kind of gold chains or pins around. If you draw the eyes of other people, watch out, because it's effectively like you're doing a fashion show and you're detracting. You're like a peacock who doesn't really have anything great to show except his fluttery feathers. But here's the $1 million question. At least here's the question that's kind of got me hooked. I tend to ask lots of questions, and I bet it's got several of you. I'm not the only one that thinks these things. Could it be that Ellen White, while she's out telling everyone else to ditch their jewelry, could it be, put away all those idols, right? All those idols that you have. Could it be that she was actually indulging in these very things herself? I mean, that would be quite the twist, although I don't know that it would be very surprising to many of us here, because if you're in episode 5, you already know kind of what is going on here. All right, so let's check this out. Let's check this out. Now, I've got this old photograph right here on the left that is of Ellen White at age 51. And she is posing with her twin sister, Elizabeth, who, by the way, this might not come as a surprise to you, but her twin sister never joined the Seventh-day Adventist movement. Now, my wife and I have twins. That would be very odd. That would be extremely odd in and of itself to have a twin that didn't actually join what it is that didn't believe in what it is that you're doing. Now, this particular photo, okay, it's one of those grainy vintage shots that kind of looks like, you pull it out of your grandma's attic or something like that. But if you really pay attention, you notice kind of in her midsection area, Ellen actually is sporting an ornamental brooch, as well as right up here by her neck, there is also something else going on. Now, if you kind of change the adjustment of the picture a little bit, you can see it a little bit better. Okay. Now, even well-known apologists, Adventist apologists, will admit They'll straight up admit, oh yeah, she was wearing a brooch. Yep. Yep. Don't be alarmed. Okay. Don't be alarmed. Just move along. Okay. Nothing to see here, peasants. Don't worry about this. She was just a normal human being. Don't worry about it. Normal human being here. She wasn't trying to be flashy. That's the big deal. That's what apologists will claim. But hold on a second, because this totally flies in the face of her own testimony in 1877, where she says very explicitly, superfluous tucks, ruffles, and ornaments of any kind should be avoided as contradictory to our profession of faith. Catch that. Our faith, the Adventist faith, the Advent movement as followers of the meek and lowly Jesus. Frequently, the trimmings of a dress cost more than the material of the dress itself. We warn our Christian sisters against the tendency to make their dresses according to worldly standards. Now, she goes on, what kind of worldly standards? Attracting certain attention. The house of God is profaned. Listen to what she says. Take in what she's saying. The house of God is profaned by the dress of professing Christian women of today. A fantastic dress, a display of gold chains and gaudy laces is a certain, listen friends, is a certain indication of a weak head and a proud heart. Did you catch that? She is saying that she's effectively calling out ornaments as straight up contradictory to the Advent flock faith, the early Advent flock faith. And she's linking this flashy stuff like golden chains to a weak head, your intellect, and a proud heart. Oh, you're arrogant. Now, keep that in the back of your mind, because we're going to show what actually Ellen White does. So keep that quote in the back of your mind. So the question is this: was Ellen contradicting her own profession of faith? Again, we saw a picture of her putting ornaments on. Like, was that a problem? I mean, it should make you pause and kind of think. Okay. And get this. She's also proudly showing off a decorative golden chain. If you actually pay attention, and yes, this is not just me saying this, you will have apologists like even Kevin Morgan, Judd Lake, people that will actually admit, because they know they can't anymore get around it, that the picture is what it is. She's wearing what we all think she's wearing. Now, here's the kicker. The kicker is that this particular picture that we have been looking at was taken just 1 year after she blasted the display of golden chains as a sign of a weak head and a proud heart. So my question is this, as we're just getting into the conversation: is this photo, would it be considered straight up evidence that Mrs. White herself had a weak head and a proud heart? I mean, this is a year after she makes the comment. So if she makes the comment and she claims that that's the case, well, then wouldn't that mean that she had a weak head and a proud heart? Just following her line of thinking. I mean, it's okay. If I'm trying to equate what she was doing with today's time, it's like telling everyone else. It's like if I come onto this live stream and I say, guys, you need to get rid of all of your junk food. You need to quit drinking coffee. Quit drinking coffee, guys. It's like me telling you to stop eating junk food, all while behind the scenes I'm munching on chips. I mean, that's hypocrisy. Isn't it? All right. Now let's fast forward to 1880. Okay. In 1880, when Mrs. White quoted, here's what she's doing. She's quoting a Bible verse about adornment and then just lays it out plain. Okay. She quotes right before this a Bible verse, and then she's going to actually take it way out of context. Okay. And use that Bible verse to say something here. And here's what she says. Here the Lord, through his apostle, speaks expressly against the wearing of gold. Let those who have had experience see to it that they do not lead others astray on this point by their example. That ring circling around your finger may be very plain, but it is useless. And the wearing of it has a wrong influence upon others. So effectively, she's warning others not to set a bad example. I mean, tell me if I'm reading this out of context, friends. But she's telling everyone, don't set a bad example by wearing gold and leading people down this wrong path. But then why on earth is she wearing a gold chain herself? I mean, if she's telling everyone else to steer clear, don't mislead, like don't even get close to it. What's the deal with her own bling? I don't get it. It's one of those, to me, it's like, how do you solve this problem? All right. Now, if anyone's sitting here thinking that, okay, well, maybe Mike, maybe this was just a one-off thing. Maybe that's the problem, okay? But it isn't. According to multiple eyewitnesses, Ellen White didn't just slip up on jewelry this one time. Oh, no. It was a regular part of her style, a regular part of her style. Now, what I want to share with you next is in a written defense of Ellen White by a very famous SDA author and theologian, Herbert E. Douglas. He's going to spill the beans, like straight up spill the beans. And this is what he says, okay? He explains, this is coming from you can find this online. You can easily find it online. The Messenger of the Lord, the Prophetic Ministry of Ellen G. White. This is in chapter 12. And he's explaining that from 1957 to 1959, Horace Shaw, a longtime professor of speech at Emmanuel Missionary College, which actually is now it's Andrews University, he put together a list of 366 people who had actually heard Ellen White speak. And just catch what he says. Just pay attention. 29 of them referred to her dress material, describing it as black velvet or silk, two-piece garment. Dress did not seem to adorn her. She seemed to adorn the dress. I don't know what that means. As an accent to the black, pay attention, Mrs. White often wore white cuffs and collar. Other accessories mentioned were a gold watch chain and a silver watch in her pocket and a simple brooch. Okay. Now, you heard it. That's almost 366 people. And this is a reoccurring theme that she wore these all the time. Okay. This was not just, these are eyewitnesses. This is a routine thing. And here's the kicker to all of this, friends. It's that this is straight up defying her own personal testimonies that she railed against that kind of display. Even if you think it's simple, it's like telling someone to go vegan while you're smacking down burgers. I mean, it's I say it's hilarious, but it's actually very sad. It's very, very sad. But we're just getting started. We're just getting started. On top of owning the silver watch, Mrs. White had at least one gold watch as well. So back in 1867, she writes a letter to Uriah Smith's wife. And what she's asking is, well, she says it here. This is Sister Harriet, Martha, and Cornelia. And she says, if that little gold watch is not disposed of, please send it to me to an express package for me to use until mine can be repaired. Mine's always broken down. Mine is all broken down. Cover off and crystal broken. So from this letter, if you read the whole thing, it's extremely clear. It's very, very clear that she had at least one gold watch that was in disrepair. And despite that, she desires to have a second one. What's the purpose of it? Well, it's to wear it. I mean, that's what you do, right? So if you're fixing one gold watch and borrowing another watch, that's not exactly abstaining from ornaments. I mean, that's not exactly like, don't have any of it. Okay. So this, to me, this should really make you question. All right, folks. All right. So let's keep the train rolling. This is 1867. And I want to show you an 1886, what I would call eyebrow raising situation. I want you to picture this for just a second. I want you to picture one of Ellen White's own followers. Surprise, surprise. It's not just Mike Colburn. One of her own followers actually calls her out on this thing. She actually complains right to her face about how she's not even following her own testimonies with regards to wearing gold. Why? Well, presumably because this person spotted Ellen flaunting her gold chain, or at least wearing one. And so knowing what she said about it, it would make you question, right? And this is what is said. In the height of the interest, one of the followers, okay, came to me and said that some were in trial because Sister White wore gold. Sometime before, I had received a present of a little open-faced gold watch. Now pay attention to what she says. It was very ancient in appearance and certainly never would have been worn for its beauty. I carried it because it was a good timekeeper. Oh, my bad. So I guess it's okay. I mean, it's okay for Ellen White to carry it because it's ancient, right? Oh, this is really old. Even though it's gold, it's really old. Don't worry about it, okay? I mean, does that make it less idolatrous? I don't know. And then she goes on, I mean, clearly in the quote, right? She goes on to eventually, she actually goes on to eventually say that she sold the watch, not because it was something that went against her own teachings on jewelry. No, she actually says that she's going to follow, she's going to follow Paul's advice, not to offend a brother. That's the reason why she sold it. And okay, that's fair. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. But after that, she seemed to settle on like it being okay to wear silver instead. So it was like, gold isn't good. It offends people, but now silver is the loophole. It's the way to get around it. It's okay. It would be like me, okay, saying, okay, I get it. I've got a Bugatti out in my driveway. You know what? I totally understand it. I'm going to go buy a brand new sedan. I mean, it's a vehicle, right? So I don't know if that makes it less, less idolatrous. If you're calling buying an expensive car idolatrous, then I guess it would still be idolatrous. And again, I'm trying to put this into like understanding in a modern standpoint. Okay, that's what I'm trying to understand here. Now, contrast that routine, that behavior of hers with the following quote that she's gonna straight up question. Okay, she is gonna condemn a lady for what she's wearing. So just contrast this. Keep it in the back. Oh, I had this, but I sold it. Just keep that in the back of your mind as we look at this next quote. She says this. The lady, she's speaking, she's kind of condemning this lady, okay? The lady displayed a gold ring on her finger, given her by an unbeliever. All right, there's the problem, right? And said she thought it no harm to wear such ornaments. Now, we are not so particular, said she, as formerly. Our people have been over scrupulous in their opinions upon the subject of dress. The ladies of this institution wear gold watches and chains and dress like other people. It is not good policy to be singular in our dress, for we cannot exert so much influence. We inquire, is this in accordance with the teachings of Christ? Are we to follow the word of God or the customs of the world? There it is. Now we're getting to the root of the issue. Okay. So if you caught what's going on, she's effectively grilling this lady for blending in with the world, wearing gold watches and chains just to fit in and gain influence, and asking if, is that really what Christ would do? If you're a follower of Christ, is that what you should do? Or are you chasing worldly trends? Well, but hold on just a second, Ellen. Ellen, weren't you doing the exact same thing? I mean, isn't this one of those moments? Weren't you wearing gold yourself and then switching to silver like it's no big deal? I mean, it's one of those like, do as I say, not as I do moments that in my opinion, it screams double standard. I mean, where do you draw the line with this stuff? What is the line of worldly standard? I mean, do we tell people not to buy iPhones and expensive laptops and like this is the devil and that's the devil? And I mean, but yet still use it? I mean, if we're following Ellen White's line of thinking, just tell other people to be spiritual and then we'll just kind of do what we want. Now, I think some Adventist apologists will think that that's not fair, but I'm letting you make the decision. According to Mrs. White herself, anyone who goes around wearing gold watches and golden chains, they're straight up not in accordance with the teachings of Christ. That's what she's saying. But again, wait a second. Does that mean, Ellen, that you wearing gold means that you weren't in accordance with Christ? I mean, these things have to make you think about the standard that she puts on other people and yet what she lives up to herself. And these episodes are all about the spirit of prophecy or the spirit of hypocrisy. Now, plenty of people back then, even now, I mean, I know this. I remember this in my own situation. My own parents challenged me. You should not be wearing a simple wedding band. And I see where it comes from now, knowing that they place so much importance on Ellen White's writings. But how many Adventists wear jewelry in private? All while telling other people, you need to follow God, take all that stuff. It's totally displeasing. I mean, this stuff happens even in today's day and age with Adventists with things like coffee. You shouldn't do that, but at home we're privately drinking it. Here's the reality of this. The actual facts is that her own actions contradict her own testimonies. That is just the reality. And it should leave anyone who is a current Adventist or thinking about moving out of Advent, it should make you think, why are you listening to someone who claims to be the spirit of prophecy that isn't even living up to her own standards? It makes me wonder if she even had confidence in her own testimonies. And here's kind of I'm going to have lots of juicy moments in today's conversation, but here's the juicy part. Did she know back then what a lot of SDAs are just now starting to figure out? I mean, did she actually know that her testimonies didn't originate from God? Was she kind of alluding to that reality? Maybe she realized that, well, this just came from the personalities around me. Perhaps deep in her heart, perhaps, again, this is me speculating, perhaps she actually felt the fakeness of what she was doing, which is why she would have these moments of, I need to apologize about this. It might explain this whole wild disconnect, advocating these very strict principles in public, but then totally ignoring. I mean, completely, guys, you're going to see even more of this as we get into this. I think this is where she got this internal tug of war that was going on. And we're here as either current or former or soon to be former Adventists. I think that we're left to pick up the pieces. Now, here's the cherry on top of this particular segment. Here's the cherry. The cherry on top is from a manuscript of her own writings, where she says the following: you say that you have read, speaking of testimonies number 6, and you refer to the last 2 paragraphs, that when people have asked you how Mrs. White was dressed, you had to tell them you were disappointed to find that my dress was not in accordance with what I had written in regard to dress. Yes, I would say this is what I would ask her. I would say I consider my dress to be in strict accordance with what I have written in regard to dress. Really, Ellen? Huh? If I write one thing and act another, I am a hypocrite. Applause, please. Yes, I agree, Ellen White. I absolutely agree with you on this statement. If you write one thing and act another, you absolutely are a hypocrite. Thank you for admitting that so that we could have some evidence of the reality of the situation. Now let's kind of circle back. Let's circle back to something we touched on earlier in this kind of wild ride. Remember when I mentioned a comment in 1877 where Mrs. White was out there complaining about, remember the ruffles on dresses? They were straight up contrary to the SDA faith. Okay. Now she called them out as being flashy, unnecessary extras that went against everything humble and meek about following Jesus. That's 1877. Okay. 1877. I want to fast forward to 1891 and get this. Okay. This is Sister Kerr. Now, Sister Kerr is going to she basically gift Ellen a whole box of ruches. Now, if you're not aware, or if you don't know what in the world is a ruche, okay, it's basically a strip of fabric that's been gathered and pleated or ruffled to create some sort of decoration or decorative kind of frilly effect, okay? Think of it as a fancy trim or an embellishment that adds that ornate vibe to clothes, okay? Super popular back in the 19th century fashion for giving outfits this extra flair. Now, I mean, this is, okay, it's like the Victorian equivalent to like ripped jeans today, okay? Or bedazzled jeans today. That's basically what it is. So just check out what's going on here. Sister Kerr took me to her parlor. You'll notice it says opened up a box of ruches for the neck and desired me to accept the entire box. Now she's going to go on and say like, I couldn't really do this. I didn't feel right. Okay. I saw that she was very serious that I should have it and I should not refuse without greatly disappointing her. Now that's kind of the key that a lot of people will say, oh, well, no, you don't want to offend her. It was beautiful silk left from a dress, which she had. She also gave me a silk scarf and, pay attention here, a $10 pin. Now, just kind of put that in the back of your mind. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Composed of white stone, very plain and serviceable. Now, I always wondered why she would say something like that. Very plain and serviceable. As if that makes a difference, okay? I thought I could not accept, but she looked so sorry that I finally did take it. Now, it'd be one thing if like, well, I didn't want to offend, and so I took it, and I didn't really use it, but I didn't want to offend. But what does she say? I have worn it ever since, for it is handy and becoming, while it is not showy at all. Now, there's the key, right? She thinks in her own, oh, it's not showy, okay? But I'm going to prove to you that this was showy. This absolutely was showy. Now, Ellen never denied her faith by actually wearing these, hopefully. I don't know if she actually wore these ruches, okay? Because this would be in direct contradiction to the like ruffles that she talked about, okay? Maybe she did. I don't know. But because that it would be very ironic if she did, okay? But in that very same letter, Mrs. White straight up acknowledged, did you catch the silk scarf and the $10 pin that was made of these white stones? $10 pin. $10 pin. She admits that she's been wearing it for a very long time. Now, I went easily and did some research, okay? It's not complicated. You can go to a website called officialdata.org/US/inflation. You can do it for any country, okay? And I just wanted to see like what this costs. Friends, $10 pin in 1891, $10 pin is $355 today. $355. I can't believe this. I mean, this is not like you're walking into a Goodwill and just buying like a cheap piece of jewelry. This is a straight up splurge. It's a straight up splurge. Okay? Now, to put this in perspective, because it's hard to put these things into perspective for today because we're so distant from the reality of what was going on during that time. I went and found, this is actually from Linda Maynard, which is Work and the American Dream in 2005, a paper that she wrote. And I want you to notice kind of in the section right here, okay? Most of the time, the average lowest wages, it was basically $4.50 a week is the average salary. Okay, so in 1910 for a female, for an average female worker. Now, that's more than 2 weeks worth of pre-tax wages. That is a luxury item. Think about what you make in 2.5 weeks. That's a luxury item. Not to mention the silk and the other stuff that was there. We only know what the pin actually was. So this really has this has me really thinking, why did she not rebuke Sister Kerr, supposedly, right, for just blowing the cash? Why? Here's another thought. Hey, I thought that this was supposed to be, you should sell this stuff and give it up and give it to the Lord's work, Ellen. How come you didn't give it to the church, Ellen? How come you just kept wearing it? Because remember, she said she wore it ever since. Okay. All right. We are just getting started, right? So we're going to just keep cranking stuff up. We're going to ramp things up here because we are deep diving. This is just not a surface level expectation. We are going deep. Okay. Hopefully you're shaking your heads, you're scratching your heads, you're wondering, maybe you're even laughing at some of this. But imagine telling your followers, just imagine this for a second, telling your followers to literally sell off all of your jewelry to fund the organization, all while you are secretly stashing your own jewelry collection. Just how would that pan out? Okay. That is exactly what happened with Ellen G. White. That's exactly what happened. We're going to move to 1896. Okay. She straight up admonishes them, straight up tells them, those who have bracelets and wear gold and ornaments have better take these, there it is again, these idols from their persons and sell them. Now listen, this is horrible financial advice. Horrible. Sell them, even if it should be for much less than they gave for them. And thus, oh, here we go. Practice self-denial. Time is too short to adorn the body with gold and silver or costly apparel, all while she's wearing a $355 brooch. Like, seriously? This stuff makes me mad. It aggravates me. So you're telling me, now, here's the thing. I don't talk about this much, friends, but my wife and I run a financial and insurance practice. We help people get out of debt. We pay attention. We help people with their insurance challenges and retirement planning. And we do things with money. This is a horrible piece of advice. Horrible. All to fund her self-fulfilled mission. This is, and some of you might not like what I'm going to say next, okay? But this reminds me of like a Benny Hinn or a Joel Osteen, a prosperity gospel, like sell it all off and give it to the church. Give all your money to me and I'll make sure that you're taken care of. The Lord's going to come and we can make him show up faster if you just give me all your money. Time is too short, friends. You got to give it to the church. So my question is, why Ellen? Why did you not sell your own gold watch and chain? Why did you not sell your pin? Why did you not sell these ruches? Why did you not sell this stuff? I mean, talk about hypocrisy much. Goodness gracious. She even goes on. I mean, look at what she says here. She goes on. She continues to double down on this. The ornamentation of the person with jewels and luxurious things is a species of idolatry. This needless display reveals a love for those things which are supposed to place a value upon the person. It gives evidence to the world. I despise the spiritual abuse that shows up in quotes like this. This needless display reveals a love for those things which are supposed to place a value upon the person. It gives evidence to the world of a heart destitute of the inward adornment. Expensive dress and ornaments of jewelry give an incorrect representation of the truth. I call BS. Ellen, you're wearing your own, and you're going to see some other financial things. I'm telling you, friends, you think $355 was a big deal? We're going to see some crazy amounts of money getting spent on stuff that she tells other people not to do. An overdressed, outwardly adorned person bears the sign of inward poverty. Literally, if you have nice things, inwardly you're destitute. A lack of spirituality is revealed. So anyone who is successful and gets anything that's nice, anything, you're just spiritually destitute. You have no capacity because, well, the only way you could is, you need to sell it at a loss and give it to the cause. Wow, wow. I mean, I guess I could just say, preach it, Ellen White. But goodness sakes, can you please practice what you preach? I mean, come on. Now, friends, it doesn't stop here. It gets even shadier when we're going to talk about some photos coming up here from the White Estate. And, in addition to making documents disappear, for decades, making documents disappear. I mean, not to mention the 1919 stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of evidence of them like keeping documents. It took someone hacking the White Estate for them to actually release manuscripts. And I know. Apologists are going to come out here and say they're probably going to make rebuttal videos to this saying, come on, you're missing the context. You got to see the real picture. Okay. See, all this is really saying is, she didn't actually control, the people around her. See, she allowed stuff. That's what either self-proclaimed or actual Adventist apologists are going to say. They're just going to sweep it under the rug. It is what it is. It's okay. No, I call hypocrisy is what I call. That's what I call. Now, in the pictures that I'm going to show you here, the one on the left here, this picture on the left, now this is, if you've looked into this and dug into this, you've probably seen these pictures, okay? The one, this is a real picture. This is the actual picture, okay? On the left, this is an elderly Ellen White that's sitting with her granddaughter. This is Ella Robinson. And on the right, you're going to see a retouched version that actually ended up showing up in Ellen White's book called Ellen G. White. And I'm making a little bit of fun of it here. Ellen G. White's Later Elm Saving Years. Just kidding. It's actually the later Elmshaven years. Now, the one on the right is actually a fake photo. It's touched up. And yes, it's been admitted that yes, it is a fake photo. And yes, it actually is, okay, just so you all are aware, okay, it is in the published edition. Take a screenshot. You can see it right there. they have published in this edition not the correct one. Okay. No. They haven't published the one on the right or on the left. They've published the one on the right, and they still won't correct it. Now, call it what you want. It's a complete cover-up, in my opinion. Now, there are speculative reasons around why this might be the case. I've heard some people say, well, it was a common occurrence back then to kind of edit photos, similar to what we do today. You know, I've heard others say that there's this kind of it's a speculative conspiracy. I don't know that it's true. Okay. But that both Arthur White and Willie White, they weren't trying to be deceitful. They were just trying to line up the pictures with their own standards, you know, just to keep the narrative correct. Well, that's just being deceitful, in my opinion. Okay. And yes, it was extremely expensive to Photoshop something like this back in the day, because this particular, I mean, this one that I have, okay, just to give you an idea, it was published. Let me just look here. I mean, this particular one's published in, let's see, in 1982. So, I mean, it was recent, but we don't really know why won't they correct it? Maybe the alterations happened because Mrs. White was cool with her own family kind of ignoring her testimonies. I don't know. I mean, this is like rules for thee, but not for me, right? Not for me and my family. Double standard vibes all over the place. Now, as we finish up this segment, now I will say this, okay, just as a point of reference, if you want to dig into this, okay, if you want to spend more time digging in, I want you to take a snapshot of the link at the top, okay? Sydney Cleveland did a ton of research on this. It's called Whitewashed. It was published in 2000. You are welcome to go take a look at that. Because we're not even scratching the surface for a lot of this stuff, okay? But as we finish this particular part of the segment, this is part one of this. Ellen White and her family very clearly were wearing jewelry while telling others not to. She wore a gold chain, even in the sect meetings, while preaching against it. When someone gifted her jewelry, she not only kept it, but she decided to wear it. Meanwhile, she's telling others to sell off all their stuff, give it at a loss, donate the money for the cause. It very clearly, this demonstrates Ellen White's hypocritical and dismissive attitude toward the burdens she placed upon other people. Jesus said that, take my yoke upon me because it's light. And here you have a woman putting heavy chains, heavy burdens around. So tell me, I mean, what do you think? Put it in the comments. What do you think? Do you think that maybe, is this the smoking gun? Does this really shed enough evidence to prove that her hypocrisy is very clear? All right. Now let's dive into the next part of today's conversation. The next part. We're going to move into a segment. I'm so excited to talk about this segment. This segment's going to be on photography. And as we jump into this, I have a quote here. Pretending you're moral, saying you're moral is not the same as acting morally. Now, I want to flip the script a little bit, and I want to talk about something that I hope it will maybe crack the case a little bit. Maybe it will blow your minds just a little bit. Remember that photo that we looked at earlier, okay, with the jewelry, and like it was Photoshop. You remember that one? Okay. Well, not only did she slam the wearing of jewelry as straight up idolatry, but get this. She also called the making of photographs idolatry. Apparently, anything of pleasure was idolatrous. Okay. I don't think, it's comical to think about this. I don't think that she had the foresight to know that we were going to have digital computers, AI technology, cell phones that literally I can zoom in and see the moon. I don't think that I don't think that she had the foresight. I don't know. Apparently God wasn't, I say this tongue in cheek. Okay. Apparently God wasn't smart enough to tell her these types of things were going to happen in the future, because he wasn't going to be coming when she thought he was going to be coming. So let's dive in to this part of the conversation. Now, this is January 22, 1891. Okay, January 22, 1891. She writes about waging war with spiritual idolatry. How she's pained, right? She's in anguish. We have for years been waging a war with spiritual idolatry. Spiritual conversions are not as abundant as we could wish. There are so many things put in the place where God should be, when he should have the entire room, and every nook and corner should reveal his presence. We have a constant contest with idolatry. Many things which gratify the lust of the eye are taking precious time and stealing away precious money. There it is again, money. The senses are pleased, but God is robbed both of time and money. I am pained. Here we go. This is what she's talking about. I am pained to see the photographs multiplied and hanging everywhere. Interesting. So I want you to catch what she's saying, right? She's waging war. What is the spiritual war? It's photographs. That's the spiritual war that's going on. That's the photographs. Okay. Now, fast forward real quick. Okay. Notice the date on this. This is 1891. Okay. Fast forward 10 years to 1901. And this is in the Review and Herald, the Advent Review and Sabbath Herald, September 10, 1901. And she just starts to really lay things on thick. Okay. This making and exchanging of photographs is here she goes again, a species of idolatry. Now, oh man, listen to what she says. Satan is doing all he can to eclipse heaven from our view. Let us not help him by making picture idols. We need to reach a higher standard than these human faces suggest. The Lord says, thou shalt have no other gods before you, before me. Now, just catch what she's saying here, okay? She's basically saying, in her mind, she's claiming that photos are little idols and that they pull us away from heaven, and that Satan is using photos to straight up cause us to violate the Ten Commandments. So I have to ask, I just have to ask, did Ellen set another God before the Almighty God by posing for photos herself? I mean, was she accidentally or not so accidentally being Satan's helper based on her own words? I mean, this is, again, trying to make it very real for today. This would be like me telling you all, God told me that you should avoid social media. You should avoid social media, all while I'm over here, taking pictures of myself and posting them on Instagram and TikTok and all these places. Just crazy stuff. Like manipulating people to think just manipulating people to think that this is how God interacts. Now remember what she said. Again, keep this all in context. Remember what she said. She said not a single dollar should be spent on jewelry. Remember that. Now, she's going to drop a very similar bombshell on photographs. Pay attention to what she says here. These photographs cost money. This is 1901. Same article. Is it consistent for us, knowing the work that is to be done at this time, to spend God's money in producing pictures of our own faces and the faces of our friends? Should not every dollar that we can spare be used in the upbuilding of the cause of God? These pictures take money that should be sacredly devoted to God's service, and they divert the mind from the truths of God's word. All right, I want you to make sure that you keep this in the back of your mind as we go forward. Notice what she says, right? Should we take these pics? Should we be producing any pictures? Oh no, the money should be used somewhere else, okay? Every dollar for the cause, not for vain pictures that distract from the real Ellen White Adventist truth. So why I have to ask, why on earth? Why was she shelling out money to make photographs that could have been used to build up the SDA sect? I mean, if you're judging her by her own standards that she set forth for everyone else, why didn't she follow her own stuff? Well, you might ask, well, Mike, do you have proof that she did that? I'm glad you asked. In the same exact article, Mrs. White claimed, okay, just you can't make this stuff up, okay? Notice what she says. She is going to claim that she was physically taken in vision, house to house to house to house, paying attention to what is in everyone's house. During the night, I was sorely distressed. A great burden rested upon me. I had been pleading with God to work in behalf of his people. My attention was called, here we go, to the money which they had invested in photographs. I was taken from house to house. Notice what she's saying. She was literally taken around to all these homes, through the homes of our people. And as I went from room to room, my instructor said, "Behold the idols which have accumulated." I have been instructed that these pictures are so many idols, taking up the time and thought which should be sacredly devoted to God. After going from home to home and seeing the many photographs, I was instructed to warn our people against this evil. This is like Ellen White peeping Tom moment, moving around, and that would freak me out, man. I'm like, I'm out of here. If you're floating around going in my house because God's like somehow like God doesn't work that way. Not that I'm aware of. This much we can do for God. We can put these picture idols out of sight. They have no power for good. But pay attention to what she says. But interpose between God and the soul. This is soul destroying stuff. They can be nothing to help in sowing the seeds of truth. Now, a couple things I want to point out, okay? I want you to notice that she had an instructor, okay? Other places, it says that she had a spirit guide. Like, that is very much occult related stuff, okay? But she is claiming that God took her around to all of these homes so that she could see all these. Now, if you heard this, would that not freak you out? Like, if you actually believed this woman to be true and you were a part of the cult and actually followed her, and was like, oh no, God's working with her. Like, this would freak me out. I don't want this woman floating through my house, whether it's in vision or physically. But notice what she says. Okay. She calls it like a form of evil. These pictures are idols. Why? Because they interpose between, did you catch that? They interpose between God and the soul. What does it mean for something to interpose? So basically, the photos are like, it's like spiritual blockers, right? It's like spiritual beta blockers. Like all those photos, they're preventing God from, from you can't have the real deal because you have these photos here. You need to get them out of sight. Now, I have a sidebar that I need to discuss. Because a well-known, I say well-known, many of you probably know the apologist Kevin Morgan. I had referenced this particular thing before, and Kevin Morgan has done a little bit of a rebuttal. I want to share this with you on what it is that Adventist apologists claim is going on here. And then I want to just, we'll see where things progress. So here's what Kevin Morgan says.
Okay, do you see here in the quotation the expressions, all the available space, on the right hand, on the left, so on? These are details that somehow he misses. Well, a picture, 1,000 words. So let's take a look at a couple of pictures and see if you can tell the difference. Here's a teenager's room in 1905. Just take a look. Okay, now here's a parlor of some Adventists in Battle Creek. Here's Ellen White in her writing room at Elmshaven. I really don't have to point out the difference, do I? She's looking at some of the extremes that people were going to, filling up every space and using a lot of means that could be used profitably for the Lord's work, for higher.
Really don't have to explain, right? Now, here's the thing. Here's the problem, okay? The problem is this. I want you to see, okay? I went and did some digging on this because I really want to track down why this is the common. Kevin Morgan is parroting what the White estate claims, just parroting it. Okay. In fact, using the same exact photograph. Okay. This particular photograph that's used is from a book called Adventist Heritage. And you can see right here a quote from Messages to Young People. This is put out in 1905 is when the quote is, but it was published here in 1982. What is claimed, again, what Kevin said and what the White estate claims is that this is what she was talking about, that this is evidence of what she was claiming. Now, here's the problem. I went and tried to find where that actual photo is from. With the power of Google AI, I just literally took a snapshot and Google went to work and it found the actual photo for me. And the photo itself actually comes from a digital library in the Montana History Portal. This is May Flahaty's bedroom in Helena, Montana. The date actually is the correct date that he claimed, okay? But what's interesting is this. First of all, there's an interesting story with May Flaherty that I'm not going to get into. But secondly, he claims that this is a normal teen girl's room. And yet, Ellen White never traveled to Helena, ever. She never went to Montana. Why would you use, this is extremely sloppy research. And I can't really blame Kevin per se, okay? I really put the blame on the white estate who published items claiming that this was the normal thing. Well, why don't you actually take a picture that would have been coming from a place that would have associated with Ellen White, or actually from an Ellen White archive? Why? Well, because there is none. All they're doing is like making the assumption that this is what was going on. And, oh, see, this is a normal occurrence. Although you're using something from a place that she never even went to. And Kevin Morgan is the one that's constantly parroting that Mike Colburn is missing the context. Silly Mike Colburn, just missing the context. Silly Mike Colburn. Really? All right. I'm off my soapbox on that for the time being. I just had to put that in for context. Now let's get back to the conversation, okay? In 1901, Ellen White is going to double down on this statement. Double down. And here's what she says in 1901. Every true child of God will be sifted as wheat. And in the sifting process, every cherished pleasure which diverts the mind from God will be sacrificed. Sounds like perfectionism. In many families, the mantle shelves, stands, and tables were filled with ornaments and pictures, albums filled with photographs. Pay attention, albums. Pay attention to that, okay? Filled with photographs of the family and the photographs of their friends are placed where they will attract the attention of visitors. Thus, the thoughts which should be upon God and heavenly interests are brought down to common things. Is not this a species of idolatry? Oof. I mean, she's calling out family albums, like family photographs, albums that you would like, hey, let's sit down and reminisce about our family. Oh, no, that's taking you to common things. You should always be thinking about God. I mean, talk about a level of strictness. It's basically like saying your Instagram feed, your Facebook feed, your TikTok feed is a shrine of Satan. I mean, again, I'm trying to make the connection to what it would be like today. But here's where it gets hilariously ironic, okay? I mean, again, you can't make this stuff up. When she left the Australian mission field in 1900, a year before the quote that we just saw, when she left the mission field, the church gifted Ellen and her son, Willie White, each with an album. Yes. And not just any album. You're going to find that this is not just some sort of minor album. This was a beautifully bound, stuffed with photographs and other memorabilia. Check out. Now I put the Korenbong farewell because that's going to connect. I just want you to pay attention to what it connected to. Okay. Back here. I want you to pay attention. I want you to just connect the Korenbong. Just pay attention to that. Okay. 2 autograph albums had been prepared, one for Ellen White, one for W.C. White family. Both were beautifully bound and each contained original drawings, photographs, and messages from the church and from individuals expressing appreciation, friendship, and love. Again, I don't see anything wrong with this, right? Okay. All right. But what's next? What's crazy is that this is Arthur White, okay, in 1900, this is Arthur White exclaiming that Ellen and Willie spent hours on their way back, apparently flipping through this photo idol book. Hours. How come their minds weren't like focused on God? I mean, come on, Ellen. She spent many pleasant hours paging through the autograph album, giving her during the farewell address right there, that same album that we looked at, Kornbaum. So did the Willie White family on the deck below, as day by day they read the pages. These albums, look, gold bossed and bound in bright royal blue velvet with gold edged leaves. This is not some small like album book. And I mean, were there thoughts on Christ when they were looking through? Again, I would argue that Ellen White and Willie White, while they're looking at this, they're thinking about themselves. I mean, again, maybe they figured, maybe they figured that they were exempt from committing this species of idolatry because of the famous, like, well, they were traveling, right? I mean, it seems like traveling and being sick are the two like tickets that get you out of like having to listen to everyone else and what she's saying. Again, while she's supposedly waging war, this outright war against the evil of photography, calling it idolatry, Mrs. White is quietly having pictures taken of herself and her family left and right, and people are giving them stuff. Now, that was 1900. Let's kind of rewind for just a second. Let's go back to 1865. 1865. She actually wanted to send some photos of her and James to the folks that they had met at Dr. Jackson's Dansville clinic. Please send us, okay, 1/2 dozen of pictures, both on one card and 1 dozen each separately. Also 2 of James, large, and 2 of mine. And please send a couple dozen How to Live Bound. Now, these are just short excerpts, okay? It's going to feel like kind of like telegram excerpts. But notice that she writes this letter asking the kids to send some stuff, right? A couple dozen. But then in December, in December, here we go, December 25, she says very clearly of that same year, possibly feeling a twinge of guilt, possibly, okay? She supposedly had this vision where she exclaims, in the vision given to me in Rochester, December 25, 1865, I was shown that picture taking had been carried to great lengths by Sabbath keepers, and that much means had been spent in multiplying copies, which was worse than lost. This means should have been invested, here we go, back into the cause of God. I was shown that we had done wrong in expending means in picture keeping. Okay, so I guess she had this divine buyer's remorse. Oops, I probably shouldn't have done that. Okay. Now, apparently word got out to some of the sect members about her photographic kind of activity, because she was forced to make a very rare public apology in 1865. She says, "We acknowledge our error." This is March 26th, 1865. "We deeply regret that we ever consented to sit for our pictures. For years, I would not consent to have pictures taken, though solicited so to do. How many times I have wished we had remained steadfast, but all we can now do is confess our wrong and ask God to forgive us and entreat the forgiveness of our brothers and sisters." I mean, regret much? I mean, it sounds sincere, except despite the confession, she kept secretly making photos. It kind of seems like she was sad she got caught. I mean, that's what it feels like, right? Sorry, not sorry vibe. Now that's 1867. That's 1867. Okay. We're going to fast forward to 1872. 5 years. And I want you to notice up at the top, this is actually released by the White Estate. We would not have known this until 2014. But she's writing to Edson and Emma, asking for pictures of her grandchildren. Father is about to say the same as usual. No special change. We're stopping Denver, Colorado, perhaps 2 weeks. We wish you to write us there, but we will write you more definitely again. Write to us at Denver, for we shall want to hear from you there. Send your pictures, as many as 8 or 10. I will settle the bill. Okay, this is 5 years later. Okay, in other words, go ahead, take a bunch of photos. I'll foot the bill myself. Maybe she just figured, I don't know, less likely that her grandkids would get caught because if the kids are doing it, you do it, I'll foot the bill. Then 4 years later, 1876, she writes to James, I do not think I shall ever get a picture to equal the one Dunham has made for me. He says I had better have the large one put on the small card. What do you think of his plan? Again, Dunham gave me 12 of these last pictures of yours. Shall I send them to you? And she kind of complains about them being not natural. She's not sure if she likes them, that kind of thing. 12. Now, a decade later, this is 1876, a decade later, we get this response, okay? And this is actually Mrs. White privately encouraging Addie and May Walling to have their family pictures taken. Even offering again, I'll settle the bill. Offering to pay. After all those warnings about wasting God's money on idols, now she's asking someone else, and I'll foot the bill. Now, the White Estate picture collection must have been very extensive. And as I'm researching some of this, I'm realizing there is a lot of pictures out there. Much more than I thought, okay? But what's interesting is in Ellen White's own will. How do we know that there was so much stuff? Well, in her own will that you can actually find, and this is again, Herbert Douglas, Messenger of the Lord, actually Appendix N in the very end, you can actually read through the last will and testament of Ellen White. And what's interesting is that in section 9, the 9th thing mentioned, she actually says, my household furniture, dishes, carpets, pictures, photographs, and clothing I give and bequeath in equal parts to my sons, James Edson White and William C. White. So this is not a small shoebox, okay? This is a massive archive. This is an extensive amount of stuff like furniture, dishes, carpets, pictures, photographs. Notice pictures and photographs and clothing. Now, she once actually admitted in kind of a hilarious wish-washy way, okay? So again, you're going to get a sense of this internal turmoil that's going on, okay? Because she admits in 1886, she says, it is true that altogether too much money is expended upon pictures. Not a little means which should flow into the treasury of God is paid to the artist. So again, this whole we should put it into the treasury of God and not send it to the artist. But the evil that will result to the church from the course of these extremists is far greater than that which they are trying to correct. It is sometimes, and this is where she kind of wish-washes around, it is sometimes a difficult matter to tell just where the line is. Where's that kind of sin line? That line of picture making becomes a sin. Where is that line? I mean, this literally just makes me scratch my head. I don't understand. I don't understand. Okay. While she might have been scratching her own head over this whole, like, exactly, is this a sin? Is it not? I don't have a crystal ball here and knowing exactly what is and what isn't. But let me remind you what she said. Every dollar spent on the idolatry of photography took away from the dollar that could have been spent given to the SDA corporation. I mean, that's where it really is at. Every buck spent on photos is a buck that is stolen from God. That was her financial advice. Got to spur the Lord's coming on. Now, fast forward to today. I go into an Adventist home. Photos hanging on the wall. They're even digital photos now. They conveniently ignore the very issue that Mrs. White said was happening. Photographic images being straight up idols. Instead, they just dismiss it by saying, oh, they were only outlawed because they were so expensive in the 1800s. And I get it. That probably eases the guilt of ignoring their own spirit of prophecy. But again, here's the kicker. That argument actually makes the white hypocrisy on photography even worse. Photos were incredibly expensive back then. I mean, they were a luxury item. Yet the whites were constantly taking photos. Where did all that money come from? Constantly. Many of these gems that we can now look at, if you go to the Loma Linda Digital Archive, and all you need to do is type in Google Loma Linda University White Estate photographs, and it will take you to this particular link. It's the Loma Linda Digital Archive. And you will find 1,200 photos, 1,200 photos, all of which in Ellen White's minds would have been idols. Now, you might be thinking I'm taking this a little out of context, okay? Some might be. So let me kind of zoom in on a prime example that I think actually will drop you guys' jaws, okay? Because if the whites' photo habit was a contradiction before, this one is like to an absurd level. Now, back in 1876, okay, 10 years before the previous quote that we looked at, the whites had a picture taken of James. And get this. This is 10 years earlier than this. Get this, okay? It's very clear. Here's the link right here. It's very clear what's the cost of this particular item. It's very, very clear. Okay. This is a negative. Okay. He's selling the negative for $500. Besides what we take, it will bring him that much custom. He thinks this is a flat affair. He has your picture in the window for show. Now, do you know how much this cost today? $500. Over $15,000. I mean, okay, let me put this into perspective. Let me just put this into perspective, okay? The average worker back then, we already talked about the female, okay? The average worker was scraping by on somewhere between $5.60, somewhere between upper of $7.60, $7.70 a week. Not a day, a week. If someone saved every single penny of their wages, no food, no rent, nothing else, every penny, It would have taken them over a year and a half to scrape together that $500. Over a year and a half. This is not, again, when we're talking photographs back then, these were not like us today where you could go like a quarter and it's no big deal, or you just snap a shot on your, this was straight up luxury. I mean, luxury. Only the wealthy could afford this kind of stuff. Now, how on earth can you justify dropping that kind of cash, especially in light of everything that she wrote, right? I mean, this screams a stark contradiction to her own vision. Remember, this is the expense that we're talking about for some of these photos. And she's saying, send this, send that, send it, I'll pay for this, I'll pay for that. It's incredible. It's absolutely, it's staggering. Okay. And remember, there's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. She wanted to funnel all of it. Okay. I was shown what we had done wrong. We need to, all the means should be invested in the cause of God. All of it should go to the Lord. Okay. Now, this is in 1893. She is pleading with her followers who were into taking photos. She was pleading with them. Again, I plead that instead of spending money for pictures of yourself and your friends, you should turn it to another channel. Let the money that has been devoted to the gratification of self flow. Here's where she wanted it to go. Don't spend all that money out there. Send it to me. Flow into the Lord's treasury to sustain those who are working to save perishing souls. Goodness. She goes on. And let me just kind of finish the quote here. She quotes, sell that ye have and give alms. Bring all the tithes into the storehouse. Again, a direct misquote to anything that's in scripture, but she's used to doing that. That they may meet in mine house and prove me now. And she goes on. I mean, this is just, so here's what she's saying. Here's what she's saying. Okay. She's basically saying, she told others that photographs were straight up idols, nothing but self-gratification, a total waste of time and money, diverting minds from God's real work, eclipsing heaven, interposing, like kind of putting a barrier between God and the soul, sucking up time and thought that should be devoted to God. But despite all of this, what is she doing? She's privately having photographs taken of herself and her family and spending great expense at it. I mean, again, it's like banning food. It's like me telling you all you should not be eating takeout food, all while I'm on my phone asking DoorDash to bring me something to eat tonight. It's an unfortunate evidence of hypocrisy. Now, as we finish out this segment, we're getting into this third part. The third part of the show. I want to bring up this quote from Edwin H. Chapman. Ostentation is the signal flag of hypocrisy. Now, I needed to look up and make sure everyone understood what ostentation was. Ostentation is pretentious and vulgar display, especially of wealth and luxury, intended to impress and attract notice. So I want to shift gears just a little bit. This is the final part of the segment. If you thought hypocrisy on photos was wild, we're getting into a whole different avenue right now. Okay. We're getting into the area of novels and fiction. You know, those made up stories that kind of suck you in because they're creative. Well, surprise, surprise, it turns out that Ellen White had some very strong opinions that were supposedly from God about this exact forbidden pleasure that somehow, surprise, surprise again, clearly didn't apply to her. So let me set this up just as a quick primer so we're on the same page for anyone that's not up to date on what fiction actually is. Fiction is basically this form of literary writing that dives into invented or imagined events and characters. It's a narrative that is cooked up in the mind of the author, describing events, characters, and setting and plot that really aren't true in a literal sense, but man, they're very entertaining, right? They're designed to entertain. They're designed to instruct. They're designed to provoke some deep thought in the way that it's shared. Even though the storylines, in many cases for fiction, the storylines are totally fabricated. Even historical fiction, we know that if we're reading historical fiction, it's a type of historical reality, but it's still fiction. Fiction is often, it mirrors human experiences, human emotions. It deals with big societal issues, big issues of today that people grapple with. Now, back in Ellen White's era, it was actually this type of literary tool was seen as a very clever way to explore very deep truths about life, about morality, about the society that they lived in, even if people knew that the tales weren't factually true. Now, I'm going to share with you a couple of examples. Okay, I want you to think about some prominent authors during this time period. You have Charles Dickens, Jane Austen, Nathaniel Hawthorne. All of these individuals used fiction to effectively drop bombshells on social conditions, human nature, personal relationships, things that were societal norms. I mean, if you've read Charles Dickens, in effect, Dickens was roasting the class system. In effect, if you read Austen, she's shading marriage norms. She's challenging those areas. If you read Nathaniel Hawthorne, he's digging into like guilt and sin. I mean, it's again, in the author's world, it's pure genius. It's genius that's wrapped up in world issues, but it's fiction. Now, here's the $1 million question. This is like the third $1 million question here. Is fiction an evil that destroys your spirituality? I mean, you know where I'm going, I hope. Ellen White was adamantly opposed to her followers reading fictional books. I mean, like, adamantly opposed. In 1902, she warned that the youth, let's read it. I mean, she claims that this stuff was horrendously dangerous for their spirituality. The readers of fiction are indulging in evil that destroys spirituality, eclipsing the beauty of the sacred page. It creates an unhealthy excitement, fevers the imagination, unfits the mind for usefulness, weans the soul from prayer, and disqualifies it for disqualifies it for any spiritual exercise. I mean, talk about cracking open a novel in Ellen White's mind is basically signing up your soul for sabotage. That's what she's saying. You're screwed if you pick up a book that's a fictional book. In Ellen White's mind, fiction is an evil that destroys spirituality. It eclipses the beauties, the Bible's beauty. It fires up this unhealthy excitement. It overheats your imagination, makes your mind useless. You can't even use your mind. Pulls you away from prayer. Straight up disqualifies you from spiritual exercise. And as many of you have already stated, what about Jesus writing in parables? But again, while she's calling fiction a spiritual fever dream, the reality is that all of the authors I mentioned, Dickens, Hawthorne, Jane Austen, many of these people that are during her time period, one that we're going to talk about at great length, all of these big authors, they were using their literary art to highlight real moral lessons. Now, isn't that ironic? Especially when you consider how her writings, I would say not just sometimes, but almost always blurred the lines between what she claimed was visions and what was very much imaginative. We're going to get into this. And it just has me thinking, like, if fiction reflects real truths, why the total shutdown by Ellen White? I don't understand this. Was there a serious fear for unhealthy excitement? I remember very vividly in my childhood, my mom telling me that, I really need to not watch this particular show because it's just spiritually damaging. And it was a fictional show. I get why she now understood that. Now, if we're tying this back to the photo chat, the conversation around the photography for a second, both, you notice the theme here. Both of these were labeled as distractions from God, spiritual, beta blockers, for lack of a better way. It really prevents you from having God experience something in your heart, that kind of thing. Yet the Whites indulged in pictures, and we're going to find that she heavily was involved in fiction. I hope you're spotting the pattern here. I hope that this is very, very clear. Now, in Ellen White's 1902 warning, if this warning right here was not bad enough, 1902, okay? 1902. Let's go almost 30 years earlier. Let's just rewind, okay? And see what she says. Novel and storybook reading are the greatest evil that youth can indulge in. Just the greatest evil. Seriously, Ellen? Come on. The greatest evil.
What? What?
The greatest evil. Okay? Novel and love story readers always fail to make good practical mothers. You notice, okay, I'm not misquoting her here. She says always, if you read novels and love stories, if you do that, you cannot be a good practical mother. They live in an unreal world. They are air castle builders living in an imaginary world. They become sentimental. They have sick fantasies. Their artificial life spoils them for anything useful. They are dwarfed in intellect, although they flatter themselves that they are superior in mind and manners. I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, reading a romance novel turns you into some sentimental air castle builder with sick fancies who can't deal with real life, apparently. It's like saying, and some of you might not like the series, but it's like saying reading Harry Potter shrinks your brain. How many Adventists have been afraid to read anything that's fictional because of what she said? And then if you fast forward, I mean, it gets worse. It goes from bad to worse, friends. She says in 1878, she straight up claims that thousands were in insane asylums because of them reading novels. Thousands are today in the insane asylum whose minds become unbalanced by novel reading, which result in air castle building and lovesick sentimentalism. Now, here's the reality of this. It is very unclear where, did she have any objective evidence of this? Like any doctor, like medical evidence, okay? But she is claiming that you would be put in the insane asylum for reading books. There's no modern medical evidence of this. I mean, I'm just going to call it straight up. I'm just going to call her for what she is. She's a liar, is what she is. That was not the case. It's completely made up to control the narrative, to put a stranglehold on what they were reading. Because why? Ellen wanted people to read her stuff. And here's the thing. Mrs. White made no distinction. Okay, some Adventists looking at this, well, Mike, she's talking about the extremes. This is like a Kevin Morgan moment, right? Oh, she's just talking about the extremists. That's what's going on. No, that's not what's going on, because she does not distinguish between good or bad novels. In her mind, they were all evil. Full stop. All evil. The world is flooded with novels of every description. Every description. Some are not of as dangerous a character as others. Some are immoral, low, and vulgar. Others are clothed with more refinement. But all are pernicious. Now, in their influence. Now, I put the definition of pernicious here just so that everyone understood. Pernicious, and she's saying all. Every single one of them, all. They have a harmful effect, essentially a gradual, subtle effect. So there's no distinction. You can't make this argument as an Adventist apologist. Oh, she was just talking about the really bad ones. No, they all of them. And last time I actually studied the word all, it means it means all. I'm not taking her out of context. It's just crazy. It's just straight up craziness. In fact, she had enough foresight to straight up reject this exact argument, this argument that it was like partial. Like, oh, some are good, some are bad. Now, I want you to listen to this, and we're going to click through on this. I did this in a little bit of a play on the problem that's going on, because with the help of modern AI, I think she would probably call AI of the Satan, of the devil. Okay. I created an Ellen White that could read her own statement for us. So let's take a look at what she says here. Let's see what she says.
There are works of fiction that were written for the purpose of teaching truth or exposing some great evil. Some of these works have accomplished good, yet they have also wrought untold harm. They contain statements and highly wrought pen pictures that excite the imagination and give rise to a train of thought which is full of danger, especially to the youth. The scenes described are lived over and over again in their. Such reading unfits the mind for usefulness and disqualifies it for spiritual exercise. It destroys interest in the Bible. Heavenly things find little place in the thoughts. As the mind dwells upon the scenes of impurity portrayed, passion is aroused, and the end is sin.
The end is sin. The end is sin. Like, what is going on here?
Even fiction which contains no suggestion of impurity and which may be intended to teach excellent principles is harmful. It encourages the habit of hasty and superficial reading, merely for the story. Thus, it tends to destroy the power of connected and vigorous thought. It unfits the soul to contemplate the great problems of duty and destiny.
Now, notice what she says here, okay? Even fiction which contains no suggestion of impurity. This is what I'm getting at. Okay, it's not just the really bad stuff. Okay?
By fostering a love for mere amusement, the reading of fiction creates a distaste for life's practical duties. Through its exciting, intoxicating power, it is not infrequently a cause of both mental and physical disease. Many a miserable, neglected home, many a lifelong invalid, many an inmate of the insane asylum has become such through the habit of novel reading.
Did you catch that? Many, okay? It causes mental, physical disease. Mental, physical disease. It makes you miserable. You neglect your home. Lifelong invalid. Inmate of the insane asylum. All because you're reading. It's a habit of reading novels.
It is often urged that in order to win the youth from sensational or worthless literature, we should supply them with a better class of fiction. This is like trying to cure a drunkard by giving him, in the place of whiskey or brandy, the milder intoxicants, such as wine, beer, or cider. The use of these would continually foster the appetite for stronger stimulants. The only safety for the inebriate and the only safeguard for the temperate man is total abstinence. For the lover of fiction, the same rule holds true. Total abstinence is his only safety.
Oh, now I want you to catch this, okay? I want you to understand what it's saying. She equates, okay, first of all, like, according to the statement, all novels are pernicious. They're straight up harmful, right? Harmful effect, especially in a gradual way. The only safety. She is equating this to a drunkard. The only way to get safe from this is to just throw them all out. In fact, she's going to later actually tell people to burn them. She even decried religious novels. If you paid attention, it didn't matter if they had good moral lessons. She called them a plague, a curse, used by Satan, effectively to deceive, to allure. They're not safe. You're not safe from them. Religious fiction, nope, you're not safe from them. And I see some people talking about some of what about Project Sunlight? What about some of these other things that the Adventist Church have put out? They are fiction. What about Ellen White's own writings that actually are fiction? We're going to get to that, okay? So apparently these things are Satan's sneaky trap. Apparently. I mean, it's basically, again, this is what she's saying. What she's saying is, like, even a wholesome Hallmark movie is a drug to spiritual ruin. Comparing it to, like, swapping whiskey for beer. That's what she's saying. I know it's it's a comical analogy, but man, this takes a whole new level of spiritual manipulation. This is occult stuff. This is control. This is next level prohibition, total abstinence or bust. It makes you wonder if even good fiction with lessons is a curse. I mean, okay, here's the question. If you throw out all these books, whose books are left? Think about that for a second. Whose books do we have left? It sounds like in Ellen's mind, the only books that you should read ever are the Bible and her writings. And if we loop back to our earlier thoughts on photos, all of those distractions, okay, it's the same tune. Anything fun or imaginative gets labeled evil. Yet, we already have seen the whites bending the rules on pictures. So the question is, did she bend the rules on this area? Oh, yes, she did. Okay. Ellen White wasn't just blanket banning novels. Okay. She was deeply worried. I get it. She had a concern for the youth. I respect that part of it, but it's not just that. Okay. She was gravely concerned for what she calls corrupt passions that would be aroused by the reader. Aroused by the reader. And she very clearly, very, very clearly, if we haven't made it clear already, what does she say? Satan is but clothed in angel robes, the more effective to deceive and allure. None are so confirmed in right principles. None so secure. You aren't safe. You aren't safe. You should not pick up. You aren't safe. This is what the devil uses, clothed in angelic garb. And she writes very clearly, this is Testimonies to the Church, 1870, when this particular quote was written. And what does she say? This is an age when corruption is teeming everywhere. The lust of the eye and the corrupt passions are aroused by beholding and by reading. The heart is corrupted through the imagination. The mind takes pleasure in contemplating scenes which awaken the lower. She's always concerned about the lower passions and the baser passions. These vile images seen through defiled imagination corrupt the morals and prepare the deluded, infatuated beings to give loose rein to lustful passions. Goodness gracious. Now, some will argue, okay, she was talking about pornography. She was talking about nude pinups. She was talking about, maybe she was talking about the horrible stuff, okay? But hold on just a second. My question is this: did she allow her family to read the Song of Solomon? Have you read the Song of Solomon? It's a fine piece of erotic literature in the Bible, full of various highly sensual interactions, encounters between a very colorfully described couple. So how would you process that? Well, do I read that? Is that evil? It's in the Bible, but it's imaginative. It arouses the passions. I get why people have this internal challenge when you pay attention to Ellen White's writings in these areas. So let's recap. Let's just recap on what Ellen White claimed. This whole laundry list of claims that she says deals with novels, storybooks, and fictions, okay? Arouses corrupt passion, causes mental and physical disease, creates a distaste for life's practical duties, destroys spirituality, it destroys the power of vigorous thought, it disqualifies the soul for any spiritual exercise, it dwarfs the intellect, fevers the imagination. makes people invalids, spoils women for anything useful. I mean, you're not even capable as a woman to do anything useful if you read novels. Unbalances the mind. It makes people go insane. Unfits the mind for usefulness. Unfits the soul for contemplating duty and destiny. Unfits women for even being good mothers. It weans the soul from prayer. I mean, who would have thought cracking open a fairy tale or a romance could unleash this kind of chaos? It's like she saw fiction as this like ultimate supervillain that's plotting world domination through your bookshelf. It's hilarious in hindsight. It's sad. But man, that is a heavy list. And that was for the adults. It doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. In 1904, she publishes a testimony warning parents about the dangers of letting their children read fairy tales and other fiction. Straight up, Mrs. White warned SDA youth that they should keep their minds pure by avoiding any kind of novel, cease from reading magazines with any kind of stories in it. In the education, children and youth, fairy tales, myths, and fictitious stories are now given a large place. Books of this character are used in the schools, and they're to be found in many homes. How many Christian parents permit their children to use books so filled with falsehood? Never should books containing a perversion of truth. Now catch this. This is ironic. Never should books containing a perversion of truth be placed before children and youth. If you are a current Adventist or a former Adventist, you absolutely have the permission of Ellen G. White herself to never place these books in front of your children ever again. Her words, not mine. But she goes on. Dear youth, cease to read. Cease reading magazines containing stories. Put away every novel. In the days of Paul, those who were converted at Ephesus burned their magic. Notice she's basically comparing it to magical books. We would do well to clear our houses of all the story magazines and the publications containing ridiculous pictures. You mean the airbrush ones, Ellen? You mean those? Presentations originated by satanic agencies. Goodness gracious. I mean, this is escalating to some like anti-fiction war to kid lit levels. I mean, it's crazy. This is crazy stuff. This is fairy tales as gateways to insanity and bad motherhood. I mean, goodness gracious. Oh. All right. Now, if we tie this back to our ongoing saga, okay, remember, it's the same vibe. Remember those pricey photos? Label something a soul-destroying evil, but then there's an exception for the inner circle. Don't worry about that, the inner circle. The rule applies. It doesn't apply to Ellen or her family, but it definitely applies to everyone outside the circle. Now, if fiction is such a mind melter, did the folks preaching against it actually follow their own rules? Just hold on. Again, I'm saving the best for last. Okay. Did Ellen White put away every novel as an example to the SDA youth? Was she a good example or was she hypocritical? Did Ellen White put away all of her novels? No, of course not. And I'm going to tell you, buckle up. Buckle up, because this is where the evidence really gets, we're going to get thick here. Ellen White, yes, was actually an avid reader of fiction. An avid reader of fiction. Get this. Ellen had this interesting practice where she would clip out stories from magazines that she was reading. And she made scrapbooks of those articles that she would then keep. In fact, we're talking not just one, we're talking about 9 scrapbook full of clippings from stories in magazines and things that were fictitious items. Now, how do we know this? Okay. Well, the evidence I'm going to share with you this is from Charles H. Tidwell Jr. This is actually this was extracted just 3 days ago, August 20. So you can go look at it. Andrews University Digital Library. Okay. Ellen White and Fiction. Now, Dr. John Waller from Andrews University analyzed the contents of 5 of those scrapbooks and found that most of the stories were anonymous, that many of them were straight up fiction, and that a few were recognized actually by well-known fiction writers of her time, including Hans Christian Andersen, who's noted for his fairy tale. Yeah, fairy tale, warned against kids, right? Harriet Beecher Stowe, along with Uncle Tom's Cabin. Now, Dr. Waller reached the conclusion that on the evidence that the scrapbooks and the Sabbath readers between 1850 and 1880, she herself read and preserved for future reference many relatively short, non-factual stories that appeared in various magazines. Okay, the research has been done. I mean, Mrs. White was secretly reading fiction in magazines, and not just reading them, but making scrapbooks of them for future use. Where was she going to use them? Well, of course, in her own writings, all while publicly telling the youth to cease from reading the magazines that contain stories. And although she told the youth to put away every novel, did you notice that? Put them all away. But wait a second. Wait a second, Ellen. You yourself, in the Great Controversy, actually applaud John Bunyan's novel, Pilgrim's Progress. You applaud it. For 200 years, the voice from Bedford Jail has spoken with thrilling power, and they have guided many feet into the path of life. Ellen, did you forget what you said about novels? I mean, this is a do as I say, not as I do. And then again, here we go. Again, she doesn't stop here. Okay. This is in her book, The Great Controversy. She very clearly, okay. This is, the larger books, Patriarchs and Prophets, Great Controversy, The Desire of Ages should be sold everywhere. These books contain truth for this time, truth that is to be proclaimed to all parts of the world. Nothing is to hinder. Now, I want you to just hold tight to that for a second, okay? Hold tight. She claims Great Controversy should be sold everywhere. Now, many of you probably already know that the Great Controversy has some issues, some fictional issues in it. An example of this is in her 1877 book, Spirit of Prophecy. This is volume 2. She actually copied 2 paragraphs from J.H. Ingraham's 1859 fictional book entitled The Prince of the House of David. Now, scholars have also observed, these are Adventist scholars, not just critics, okay? Scholars have observed that many of Ellen White's descriptions of events before the fall of man appear strikingly similar to the fictional account found in John Milton's Paradise Lost, a book that actually was found in her library. Now, Mrs. White also copied several passages from the Apocrypha and fictional books like Second Esdras in her own writings. Now, when examining several of her books, including The Desire of Ages, she claimed what we just looked at. She claimed that this book, including Patriarchs and Prophets, Great Controversy, Desire of Ages, these are truths. Nothing should hinder them. These are truths. Now, my question is did she obtain this information from heavenly visions or from fictional writings? Now, if we fast forward to 1982, now this is 1903, okay, in the Review and Herald. Ellen White passes away in 1915. And if we fast forward to 1982, a gentleman by the name of Fred Veltman, who is at that time in 1982, he was the chairman of the religious department at Pacific Union College. He was asked by the SDA Church to analyze the charges of Ellen White's plagiarism. And what came out, okay, in this article, you can find this online. This is actually Ministry Magazine, December of 1990. In his Desire of Ages project, the data, you'll see right here something that he admits, something that I already mentioned to you. One obviously fictional account is Ingraham's, I already mentioned this, The Prince of the House of David, a work that Albert Schweitzer referred to as one of the edifying romances on the life of Jesus intended for family reading. Ingraham cast his work as a collection of letters written by an eyewitness in Palestine to her father in Egypt. Now, wait a second. I thought, again, she copied this. This is in the Desire of Ages. Sections of this book. So she put fiction, at least to some extent. Now remember, she said that everything in Desire of Ages was absolute truth. Nothing should hinder the sale of it. It's complete truth. But wait a second, it's got fiction in it. So she put fiction in her writings, thereby causing SDAs to, unbeknown to them, read her own fiction, thereby unbalancing their minds and destroying their spirituality. Following your own logic. Now that is next level irony. It's comical. Her fans are getting a dose of the very evil she warned against, baked right in to her quote unquote inspired texts. Now, my follow-up question to all of this is, okay, I mean, maybe that's a little bit on the edge, but did Mrs. White actually help develop any fictional books? I mean, actual fictional books. And the answer is, well, of course she did. Ellen White was directly involved in the production of a 4-volume SDA series called Sabbath Readings for the Home Circle. Each storybook was a whopping 400 pages long and consisted of fictional articles that she had collected over the years. Now, these stories were intended to inspire moral behavior, no doubt. I mean, I think the intent was great there, and I would argue that these are probably better than maybe some of the run-of-the-mill novels in the 1800s. But hold on a second, Ellen. Do these actually line up to her own testimony? As we noted earlier, right? She says, even fiction which contains no suggestion of impurity and which may be intended to teach excellent principles is harmful. I mean, by her own definition, she was providing harmful reading material to her own sect. By her own definition. And the upside for her? Well, her and her family benefit greatly. I mean, handsome profits from the royalties. It's like, burn the novels, but buy mine first. And if you, I mean, talking about burning, okay, for a second, in an 1856 testimony that she gave to her own Advent sect, Mrs. White advised parents had much better burn, here it is, burn the idle tales of the day and the novels as they come into their houses. It would be a mercy to their children. Encourage the reading of these storybooks, and it is like enchantment. It bewilders and poisons the mind. Burn everyone else's literary works of art, but keep mine, certainly. Now, what's interesting is the Adventist sect was very fond of this particular quote, okay? Because they published it in the Review in 1863, Spiritual Gifts in 1865, Signs of the Times in 1880, and then in a sermon that was delivered in 1906, she admonished the following. Now, I want every one of you to burn up your old magazines and your novels. For every soul that is here, you want to understand what is truth. You want to live in the plan of addition, and God has promised to work on the plan of multiplication. You will have your own life insurance policy in the kingdom of our God by the knowledge you may reap if you will. So, well, let's just fast forward to a year later, okay? In 1907, after describing the magic books that we had read previously, right? The books burned in Ephesus. This is in Acts 19, 18 and 20. She writes this: I would that all the cheap, trashy literature in every home might be burned up. You cannot do better, my dear young friends, that to burn everything that would tempt you to indulge in the reading of fictitious stories. Well, this is Ellen White's own permission to burn all of her books, since her books are fiction as well. We're going to get to that. How many, and this is the thing, how many very loyal SDAs at this time ran home, burned all of their literary art, all their novels that they heard from this sermon, or maybe reading the frightening admonitions in her testimonies, and supposedly came from heaven, and perhaps they wouldn't have burned them if they had realized that Ellen White did what she did with her own books and put fiction in her books while telling others to burn all the other stuff. She kept hers in her own. In fact, she kept fictional books in her own library. According to the Ellen White state list of books that were in Ellen White's library, in addition to Milton's fictional Paradise Lost that we talked about, she owned at least 10 other 19th century novels, at least. They included things like Deward and Diamonds by Emma Marshall. She had Letters to the Jonases by Josiah Holland. She had Martha's Home and How the Sunshine Came Into It by F.M. Martha. Springtime, which is a magazine that for our young men and maidens. She had Sunshine and Shadows along with The Pathway of Life. She had Titcom's Letters to Young People. Interesting that she also had letters to young people. The Baron's Children by Sarah Myers. She had The Moss Rose by S.G. Goodrich. The Throne of David, which is the book that she actually copied into Desire of Ages. And then she also had Women to the Rescue. Now, these are just a few that were identified. Just a few. Just a few. Not all of them, okay? But clearly, she had a secret stash of fiction on her shelves, profiting from her own curated collections, all while purchasing or preaching book bonfires. Get rid of it all, but I'm going to keep it. Now that is irony at its best. It's like there's all kinds of examples. It's like a chef banning sugar, but baking cakes, for cash. I mean the hypocrisy is ludicrous. Now, if we loop this back into our ongoing chat on scrapbooks, plagiarism, and those like arousing passion warnings, it's the same hypocrisy pattern that we've been spotting, right? Strict rules for the flock, but a personal library pass for the prophetess. But hold on to your seats for just a second as we round out. Hold on, because we're peeling back another layer. Did Ellen White, did she have any racist novels in her library? You better believe it, okay? In addition to the works of fiction that we just unpacked, okay? Sister White also had some seriously problematic racist novels tucked away. We're talking about The Clansman and The Leopard's Spots. Both of these were by Thomas Dixon. So now I want to break this down for just a little bit, okay? Because this is heavy, but very eye-opening. Now, Dixon, the author of these two particular books that she had, Dixon wasn't just any old writer, okay? His father and uncle were at one time they were members of the American racist organization called the Ku Klux Klan. Now, in his book, The Clansman, that's the actual title, okay? That's the actual title, The Clansman. It portrays the Klan in a relatively positive light. Like there's some kind of heroic saviors of some sort. It's part of his trilogy on Reconstruction, which includes The Leopard's Spots, The Clansman, and The Traitor. It's a trilogy by the author. In these best-selling novels, Dixon actually presents highly imaginative fiction as hard historical facts. He basically blends romance with propaganda to push some very ugly narratives. He used them to depict Negroes. And I'm using an outdated term there. I get that, but I'm using the language in the book. Okay, it matches the era's language. He depicts them as inferior to whites, to glorify the antebellum American South, and to advocate for racial segregation. Now, while he claimed to oppose slavery, his books scream otherwise. The Klansman is basically a message to Northerners to maintain racial segregation, claiming that blacks were free. If they were freed, they turned savage. Horrible dialogue. And in The Leopard's Spot, Dixon actually offers a very unconstructed. Actually, wait. If I think what I mean is unreconstructed, okay, account of Reconstruction where the villains are actually Simon Legree types. Now, if you know the reference, okay, you may or may not know that reference, but Simon Legree is the brutal slave owner from Uncle Tom's Cabin. Northern liberals and emancipated slaves were the hero. You guessed it, the hero, the Ku Klux Klan. Now, these aren't just dusty old books. They're inspired stuff like the infamous film, The Birth of a Nation, which glorified the KKK and fueled, real world racism. So one really has to wonder, why on earth did she keep these types of racist works of fiction in her own library while telling others to burn these books of fiction? It's It's the ultimate head scratcher. Why would you do that? I mean, you're going to preach burning the idle tales and put away every novel because they create poison in the mind, right? All while you're going to hoard ones that are poisonous with actual hate and division in them. I mean, actual hate. By your own standards, these would arouse corrupt passions, unbalance the mind, destroy spirituality, right? And remember, she called even good moral fiction harmful. Yet she straight up has propaganda novels that glorify segregation and white supremacy. Now, I know Adventist apologists will say, oh, she wasn't racist. Oh, she wasn't racist. I'm not going to go there today. But let's tie this all right back into the ongoing deep dive, okay? We've seen her clipping fairy tales, profiting from moral storybooks, copying fiction into her supposedly inspired writings, and now this. It's like hypocrisy levels are just like off the charts. Rules for the youth to purge their shelves and maybe even burn them for mercy's sake. But her private collection, she gets a bypass. Don't worry about it. It's my collection, including toxic gems like the ones I've mentioned. I mean, was it for research on social issues or something else? And how does this square with SDA teachings on equality and love? Now, it's at this point that I want to share some details with you on a cryptic comment that I made several episodes ago. I mentioned that I had heard from a leading expert and Adventist scholar on Ellen G. White that this person actually believed that a better way of understanding the plagiarism or literary borrowing charge of Ellen White is to understand that some of Ellen's writings should be perceived as fiction. I have kept this person's identity obscured. I will not disclose who this is, but I do want you to check out. This is an excerpt from a conversation, and I want us to be very, very aware, and I want us to pay. It's about a 5-minute clip that I'm going to share with you all. Here it is.
Alternative explanations that make more sense given the comments that we find her making about her activity. And also just looking at the kinds of things that she did, she would borrow, at times quite liberally, word for word stuff from different authors. But a lot of the time, we see more of a literary influence where she takes plot ideas, narrative ideas, concepts, and so forth into her work. And so again, this sort of matches Ellen White's own writing style, which is that most of her books, she doesn't actually sit down and just write them out. She tends to end up with a sort of community model of authorship where she is either working in tandem with other people she's drawing on, or she has editors helping to bring things together. She tends to write articles, and then those articles are edited into larger books in some form or another. So I think personally that both on the conservative side and the liberal side, the discussions about Ellen White's literary borrowing / plagiarism, choose your word of the day, I do think that they're pretty much missing the mark on everything. Because on the conservative side, they're trying very hard to defend that it's not really plagiarism, it's literary borrowing. But the thing that they don't spend time to pay attention to is what the implications of that are for Ellen White herself and what she believed about the nature of her writing. So on the kind of anti-Ellen White side, when you start throwing around plagiarism, the focus is on kind of deceit and inerrancy. And so it's like, oh, look, it's not all originally from her. And so as a result, it's not inspired. And both of these perspectives completely miss the mark because what they're failing to sort of achieve or understand is that when we're examining Ellen White's use of literary materials, if she, for example, is drawing on, as she does in Desire of Ages, if she's drawing material from novels to put into the Desire of Ages, the right question is not for the conservatives to say, oh, well, that's because when she was reading that novel, she saw that what it said best described what she saw in vision. What's wrong with that idea? Well, Ellen White never claimed that those details came from a vision. Therefore, conservatives should not assume that is the best explanation. Likewise, the anti-Ellen White crowd should not be assuming, well, she drew from novels. And so, really, that's all fictional and crazy. And so you can't believe anything she wrote. She's lying that she didn't see it in a vision because she really took it from the novels. The problem with that perspective is the same as the other one. Ellen White never claimed that these details came from visions in such instances. So, one of the things that the conversation currently misses is that if you see the Desire of Ages as drawing on, in some instances, fictional literature to get details about things happening in the story world of the New Testament, then that opens up the important question: did Ellen White actually think of Desire of Ages as partly fictional? And that's the thing that neither the anti-Ellen White nor the pro-Ellen White crowd thinks about, which is, well, wait a minute. She never claimed the Desire of Ages was from vision, all of it. So is it possible that some parts of it in Ellen White's mind were actually fictional? And the conservatives never think about the fact that Ellen White never claimed that all of these details came from a vision. And so if we see that she's copying stuff from a novel, can it be that that indicates that she views part of the genre of the Desire of Ages as partly fictional? The difficulty in understanding the plagiarism issue is that if you think her goal is to try to give you divine information, to try to give you that inside perspective of exactly what happened. The kind of propaganda that the General Conference under Ted Wilson's administration would do on their YouTube channel, where they're like, hey, you want to know what Jesus really believed in? What was Jesus really doing in this passage in the Gospel of Matthew? Go read Ellen White in Desire of Ages. And now you know the answer, right? That assumes Ellen White saw the entire sequence encompassing everything the Bible discussed, and that every detail she provides is authentic and true to that. But if that's not what she's doing, if what she's really doing is kind of more midrashic, she's more like giving you a pastoral interpretation based off of the vision she received. What you're dealing with isn't a text that's intended to give you that level of detail at.
Apparently, we didn't get all of that completed. But I want you to understand what's going on in the conversation. You got the gist of it. The problem here is that very clear evidence that this particular Adventist scholar believes that, well, she did create fiction. I mean, that's this person's clear point. But there's many problems with this particular stance. And I'm not here to defend or argue. I want you to be aware that there is a real struggle with many people that are very intelligent Adventist scholars, and that they are trying to deal with connecting these ideas, trying to put Ellen White into a light that is honest, but deals with all the problems in her writings. I'm hoping that you're seeing the issue. What it boils down, the reality is that it's very clear that she created fictional works. That's the reality of the situation. And if she created fictional works, her own writings condemn herself. That's the reality. We have very clearly seen that some, if not many, of her books are fictional adaptations. What some would call, and in fact, he would later call like flashlight visions. This is what they call it. And she would have a flashlight vision, and then she would go and seek out materials that would fit into what she thinks makes sense. Known Christian and non-Christian fictional works were added to put into what's going on, to fill in the details. And as that video would have said at the very end, this scholar believed that Ellen White thought that the ends justified the means. But the problem, the worst part of this is that she claimed that all of her literary work was inspired by God and should be perceived as such. Now, just remember that she believed that she couldn't even lift her pen to write something unless the Holy Spirit directed her. Now, my intent here, again, let me be very, very clear. My intent is not to belittle the understanding of an Adventist scholar, but rather simply to shed light on the inconsistencies and the lacking descriptions, the way that this gets described in these veins of work. When you weigh the evidence, Ellen's writings are filled with biblical errors, inconsistencies. Her own life couldn't live up to the very things that she claimed in her own writings. She was a hypocrite. And this particular Adventist scholar, his acknowledgement of the fiction issue just further solidifies that exact reality. Now, we're almost finished, friends. Buckle up. I saved the best for last. Okay. We're going to finish out the segment with the wildest contradiction. It relates to a book that I already mentioned, Uncle Tom's Cabin. My question is, was Uncle Tom's Cabin actually Satan's work? Now, according to Mrs. White, it actually was. She blasted others for recommending this popular anti-slave novel, calling it straight up demonic. Here's what she says. This is to Brother E. Now, if you don't know, I put it in the comment, but Brother E is actually James Edson White. He was referred to as Brother E. And she says this: Dear Brother E, I have just read the review in Herald and have seen your article giving a list of good books for our youth. I was much surprised to read your recommendation of Uncle Tom's Cabin, Robinson's Crusoe, and such books. I know that the recommendation of our papers of such infatuating books as Uncle Tom's Cabin will in many minds justify the reading of other books which are nothing but fiction. It is Satan's work to present to our youth newspaper stories and storybooks that fascinate the senses and thus destroy their relish for the Word of God. Now, in a letter, this is 1882. In a letter in 1886, this is what's stated. The fact is, my brother, you need a deeper insight to see the tendencies and the results of the reading of Uncle Tom's Cabin. They are statements and pen pictures which set the imagination upon a train of thought that has been deleterious and positively injurious. These highly wrought pictures have taken hold of nervous, susceptible youth, and they have lived them over and over again in imagination. It has destroyed appetite for the Bible and the desire to attend prayer meetings, for everything was stale and without interest after feasting upon the diets upon this book. She goes on. The food taken into the mind was such a character that heavenly and divine things found no place in the thoughts, and the imaginations were evil. And these youth have made confessions that this was caused by the reading of Uncle Tom's Cabin. This laid the foundation for a train of evils, and the imaginations became intensely excited, and the thoughts should recur again and again in immoral subjects, which led to sin of licentiousness and impurity, to disobedience, to secret planning, and to deception. Now, why demonize this particular book? Why demonize Uncle Tom's Cabin which being so harmful? Let's kind of unpack this for a second. This is a novel that depicts the cruel reality of slavery while asserting that Christian love can overcome something as destructive as the enslavement of fellow human beings. It was partly inspired by the true story of the slave named Josiah Henson, written by a teacher from Connecticut named Harriet Beecher Stowe. The book actually helped fuel the abolishment movement that eventually led to the end of slavery in the United States. Now, Stowe became an icon of freedom in the northern United States. And actually, President Abraham Lincoln even met with her before the start of the American Civil War. This particular immensely popular book became the second best selling book in the world during the 19th century, right before the Bible itself, right behind it. And it was translated into every major human language. Undoubtedly, this was one of the most important books written in the 19th century. Here's the irony, it's even accepted, read, and taught today in SDA universities. So is Uncle Tom's Cabin a book written by a Christian encouraging the end of slavery with a foreword by an ordained minister of the gospel? Is it really that horrible? Really? Now, here's where it kind of gets mind-boggling hypocritical, okay? Oddly enough, Mrs. White later clipped stories written by Harriet Beecher Stowe and put them in her own scrapbooks. Yep, same author that she demonized herself. It's unconscionable that Mrs. White condemned the reading of Uncle Tom's Cabin, an anti-racist book, and yet she kept racist novels like The Clansman, The Leopard's Spots in her own private library. If Mrs. White didn't abstain from low-class fiction like The Clansman, for example, then how could she expect her followers to abstain from high-class fiction like Uncle Tom's Cabin? As some of you have already pointed out, I mean, even Jesus spoke in parables. These are fictional stories. Even though they have parables are fictional, even though they teach and educate some sort of reality. They illustrate a moral and spiritual lesson. Just because it's fiction doesn't mean it can't be helpful. I mean, in the Old Testament, Nathan told King David a fictional story about a rich man taking a poor man's lamb, which served as an allegory for David's sin with Bathsheba. Mrs. White has this exact story along with the parables of Jesus in her writings. Does that make her writings fictional? Well, I already think they are fictional and they should be burned. But do you see the inconsistency? While telling others to avoid novels like The Plague and burn their own works of fiction because they might cause some sort of insanity, Sister White clips out these fictional stories and keeps them and saves them for later purposes, collaborating with these writers in her own books, incorporating them into her own inspired books. I say inspired. Now, again, you can't make this stuff up. This is hypocrisy to another level. Condemning an anti-slavery masterpiece as Satan's tool while hoarding pro-segregation propaganda. And then weaving parable-like fictions into her own stuff. It's like the ultimate self-own in this action fiction crusade where we're unpacking these. It's like she can't keep up with her own forbidden things that she's telling other people. Now, friends, I hope as we end the segment, if this deep dive, if this segment has been helpful, if it's kind of got your mind spinning and your views shifting, trust me, you're not alone. You're absolutely not alone. My question is this: was this just divine double standards? Or maybe human flaws amplified by power? What do you think? Does this actually shatter the spirit of prophecy? Or is there some defense that maybe I'm missing? Listen, friends, I'd love for you to put your comments in the section below. Smash the like button. If we raise some eyebrows today, hit the like button, share it with others, hit the subscribe button if you want more of this historical breakdowns that continue to keep helping people question everything that you potentially were taught about Ellen White and the Adventist Church. Next time we're going to dive into more of Ellen White's personal life. We're going to talk about cholera mixtures. We're going to talk about her fixation with fancy hats, her personal secrets, and of course, some things that you guys are absolutely probably waiting for, and that is Ellen's own hypocritical financial affairs. She definitely built a wealth, a legacy on the backs of her followers' sacrifices, all under the name of doing the mission of God. You're not going to want to miss the next segment. Thank you again for taking the time to dig deep with me and ask the hard questions. As always, if today's journey was inspiring, if it was challenging, or maybe if it was just a little uncomfortable, well, good. That's what we want. That means you're actually thinking. I can't wait to continue examining this particular topic and see what other kind of truths are uncovered from the official narrative that the Adventist Church likes to propagate. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Leave your comments, please do. Bring your questions to the next one because this conversation is far from being over. Friends, I am Mike Colburn from the Thinking Cup, and I will see you on the next episode where I'll shine even more light on the uncomfortable side of truth. Until then, keep searching, keep testing, keep thinking for yourself, stay curious. I can't wait to see you on the next one. Have a good afternoon.